was Zac Taylor at A&M?
Well, I wasn't in the room
Or
with him.
with him.
It was great. It was great. So I was on scout team, and he was a scout team coach. And so that was when I transferred in. I was ineligible. But I liked Zac from the get. He always treated me well, just like he treats people now. And big part of the reason I wanted to be here.
How much have you kept in contact with him over the years? Is it like pretty consistent, or just did this kind of like catch you by surprise?
Very consistent.
Yeah.
Now, is it every month? Is it every week? No, absolutely not. But when I wanted to get into the NFL, his father-in-law, Mike Sherman, actually recommended that I go to camps and get around those guys. And so that's what I did. When he was in Miami, I went down and he got me in the building and got me around Mark Duffner and those types of guys. And so that's really probably where things got tighter from a professional standpoint.
Mike, you've been looking at NFL linebackers for a long time here at the Combine.
Yes, sir.
But do you have any prerequisite physical traits that they have to have?
No, I think you got to take it case by case. I mean, you've got guys that are monsters like Demario Davis that are kind of unicorns, and then you've got guys like a couple years ago, Nakobe Dean, who did a lot of good things in Philly that are a little bit smaller, but everybody's got their niche, and I think you got to look at each guy in a certain whatever lens is best to maximize that player. And so obviously we've got our baseline, and we certain things that may be red flags, but I don't eliminate anybody because of length or height. We're going to look at the tape and see what that tells us.
What traits do you like most in an off-ball linebacker?
One more time?
What traits do you like most in an off-ball linebacker?
I think the big one there is going to be instincts, right? There's a lot of tangibles that we're going to lean on, and those we need to check those boxes, but there's a lot of intangibles that the great inside linebackers have that's where it's watching tape is difficult at times, because we're trying to pull that out of that and see who has those traits, because it's not always just jumps off of the screen, but oftentimes it does, and when it does, you've got something. And so instincts, intelligence, those things, those intangibles are going to be really important for an off-the-ball player. And then obviously we're going to lean heavy on the tangibles as well.
How do you teach and improve tackling?
Tackling?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's reps, right? It's specifics in how we're teaching it. I think what Al's done a great job of in our short time together is that we're going to coach things his way, our way is a better way to say it. We're going to put it together our way, but we're all going to teach it consistently. So it doesn't matter if it's Al, Jerry Montgomery, me, Sean Desai, whoever going to coach a linebacker, we're all using the same language. And I think that consistency and intensity and how often we coach it is going to help us be better in that role.
How much does it help you, given the fact that Al's former experience here was with the linebackers, and you kind of know going in what his expectations are with the personnel that's going to be here?
Yeah, I think it's actually an interesting question, because it's two parts, right? Because I have what I think is the right way, and I've never worked for a guy who would say, "Hey, I'm a really good linebacker coach. I want things my way," and that's not what Al's saying. But it is intriguing to me, his experience with guys like Logan, and obviously what they've done here when they were playing at a really high level, just defensively as a group. I'm excited to lean on him for that and learn from a guy who's done it at a really high level. So I only see it as a positive, but it does shift my perspective a little bit, because I've been doing the same thing with a lot of the same guys, and we've had a lot of success in New Orleans. But hearing his way of doing things and adding that into my way is exciting, and I think it's only going to enhance the way I coach these guys.
The Bengals over the years, they brought in a lot of Saints. I've heard a lot about them studying stuff the Saints were doing. Did you pick up on any of that crossover?
Well, yeah. At one point, there were several DBs here that had just previously been in New Orleans, and there were a lot of conversations. There were conversations in our building that Vaughn came over here, played really high at a high level. Eli's coach playing in the Super Bowl here, and it's like, I think it's just a testament of two organizations that think like-minded and know what good players are and try to get the best out of them on the field. So I only saw it as a positive.
What you learned from Demario Davis?
What did I learn from Demario?
About being a leader and a football player.
We don't have time for that. He is one of one, and I think it's important that we give the man his flowers. He's earned them. He's as much of a friend as he is a player coach. Relationship there. We were together for 7 years, and I've never seen somebody, player, coach, anybody, get up in front of a room. It could be a Tuesday afternoon, it could be a Sunday morning, and own the room like he does. So I think just like anybody that talks about leadership, his ability to connect with guys from all different walks of life is what's really important. And then he speaks from the heart, and it's genuine and it's consistent. And so those things pay a lot of dividends for guys that are looking up to him.
When you looked at Wilson and kind of what he did well last year, what do you feel like he excelled, and what do you feel like he can do better moving forward this season?
Well, I think one of the things that he does really well is the ball production. Just over his career, you felt that as you study linebackers across the league. If there was a knock on Demario, that would have been it. He doesn't have a ton of ball disruption, and those are the guys that are elite. I mean, look at Zach Bond this year. He's did so many great things, but one thing he did really well was he got the ball back, right? And we still a series or two for Joe and company over there. Things usually play out well for us. So I really like that. I think he's instinctive, and I know he's incredibly smart. So those three things are all things that I'm excited to work with. From a developmental standpoint, I haven't had a chance to sit down and talk to him about those, so I'm going to keep those a little bit tighter. But everybody from Demario down to Logan down to whoever we draft, there's always areas for improvement, and we'll identify two or three of those a year. We'll hone in on them and make sure we fill those gaps in his game.
Mike, what's your take on sitting down with Duke and those guys? Kind of a different look probably for you.
Sure.
What stands out after your discussion with the scouts? The way they do it here.
Well, one, it's smaller, right? We had an army in New Orleans, and not that that's better or worse, but it's very different. How we do our formal testing, in those settings, it's a little bit different. So it's me making sure I'm getting out of these meetings and these tests what they need. But I think what's exciting is they want to be collaborative. Coaches have a huge say in what goes on personnel-wise here, and hearing from their experience and them allowing us to contribute to the decisions is something I'm really excited about as we try to rebuild this defense.
Random question, but there's a lot more 3-3-5 played in college, like over the last 3-4 years. How has that affected the types of linebackers that come up now that formation's been so prevalent, especially in power forward? Like, how has that affected the evaluations when you're going through watching tape as you get in the league?
Yeah, I think what's interesting is when you look at linebackers, oftentimes when somebody talks about a linebacker, they talk about his ability to diagnose and his instincts. Well, those can be exclusive from one another, because in some of this 3-3 stack stuff, oftentimes it's a odd spacing where they're told back up, finish on the ball, where that's more of an instinctual thing, don't necessarily have to diagnose as much. Where in an even front, there's a little bit more diagnosing, understand where your gap is, understanding how we're going to fit these things. And so, balancing that, it's a good question. Balancing that has been newer as the game has changed. But being able to figure out our guys able to have the instincts, which I think is more important because it's harder to teach, and then we can always teach them the key and diagnose. But it's definitely a factor as we try to figure out what these guys know and how they play best, with what's in front of them.
So do you prioritize is there maybe more a prioritization for guys coming out of nickel schemes that play like nickel's base as opposed to coming out of stack?
Absolutely not.
No.
It's find the best players. And that's what I told personnel guys when I first got here. It's like, I don't need the best outside linebacker or the best inside. I need the best player. And then it's on us to figure out how to use them the right way. So their scheme in college is not going to be a factor for us, different than maybe, an option quarterback, you know what I mean? Like, that obviously has a factor on those decisions. But for us, find the best guy.
With that being said, how do you best evaluate instincts in a linebacker?
It's a lot of tape. There's a lot of tape, and it's little things like, all right, they read the play, but then boom, they ran into a blocker. But a guy that has this savviness and ability to be elusive, and it just seems normal for him. It's like, there's something there. Now you keep digging into it. So I would say it's probably the hardest thing to evaluate, while also probably one of the most important things to evaluate.
How tough was the Bengals offense to prepare for in 23 when New Orleans faced?
Well, it wasn't fun. Now, we knew we were going to play split safety and try to stay on top. And so I think what the Bengals offense has done with Zac and company, like this, they have the ability to win every single game at any single moment. And it felt like that when I coached with Drew Brees. It didn't matter. We were always in it, and so we had to coach those guys that they're always in it, and who to take away, and then to deal with the other stuff underneath. But if we were giving guys deep balls down the field, we knew it was going to be a long day. I don't remember exactly how that game played out. I knew it was tight for a while, but
Jabbar at the end.
the better team won that game. There's no doubt about it.
That's what you're just talking about, though. Jamara, I think, won it in the last 3 minutes.
Right. We couldn't give it to him, and we did at the end. So he took advantage of us. So all good.